tonight on the 9 o'clock news.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the stars for you.
A Missoula musician opens up about his success and struggles with mental health in tonight's special report.
A Montana family heads to Washington, D.C. to advocate for missing Indigenous women.
And Bobcat fans begin their trek to Fargo as MSU advances to the second round of football playoffs.
Covering Montana right now. This is Fox Local News at 9.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Angela Marshall, and thanks for joining us after tonight's Pac-12 Championship, which we're proud to broadcast here live on your local Fox station. Our weather authority, Megan Barraza, will have your full weekend weather forecast coming up in just a bit. But first, let's go ahead and turn to the men of the hour. Ben Wyman and our sports director, Sean Rainey. They're standing by right now in the SWX studio for a recap of tonight's game. Guys, how do you think things played out tonight?
Yeah, good evening, Angela. Really kind of a defensive slugfest. The Washington Huskies are your Pac-12 title champions, 10-3 the final against Utah.
Yeah, disclaimer. We have a Washington State Coug here.
It was
we have a lot of Washington State alum in our newsroom and in our company. So it was a tough one watching the Washington Huskies win the title tonight.
So
I know it was,
but
Bowl. Yeah, I mean back-to-back games on Fox where it was all defense. Yeah. Yesterday it was Cowboys 13-10 over the Saints, 10-3 tonight. Kind of a slugfest, an old school battle. Yeah. I personally, everyone's talking about, hey, I won all these 50-point games. No, I kind of like the low scoring affair. But
you're going to be joining us later in sports, talking about another football game, a big game coming up tomorrow in Fargo.
Yeah, and one that's, we're talking about defense, two defensive teams as well in that one, so we'll kind of preview that. But congrats to. Just don't listen. Congrats to the Washington Huskies on the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, and you have kind of more information about that game that Sean was talking about in Fargo between the Cats and the Bison.
Sure do. Thanks so much, Ben. In fact, you might spot a lot of blue and gold in downtown Bozeman tomorrow as Bobcat fans gather to watch MSU take on the South Dakota State Bison. And this year is extra special for Cat fans, being it's the first time in 6 years MSU has made it to round 2 of the postseason playoffs. And if you're not making the 11-hour drive to Bozeman or from Bozeman to the Fargo Dome, there are a lot of places to watch the game on ESPN3 around Montana. North Dakota State University is organizing watch parties at the VU Villa in Butte and the Stadium Club in Billings. The Rocking Our Bar is getting ready to host another round of excited fans in Bozeman, where they say they'll be airing the game and offering drink specials. Now, this is a big game for the Bobcats. The North Dakota State Bison are top seeded, and it's a team from which head coach Jeff Choate says he's been taking notes.
I think that we are playing a competitive schedule. We're playing the type of teams that we have to play to know what we have to do. And when we go to these places and see what they're doing, that's what I'm excited about.
Bobcat alumni are holding a tailgate tomorrow in Fargo at the Bison Corral. If you're still planning on making that drive, you can find more information about that on our Facebook page at ABC Fox Montana.
Well, hello, I'm back. Sean will be back in sports, talk about that football game. But with many football fans heading to Fargo this weekend for the playoffs, we now turn to our weather authority, Megan Barraza, for a critical look at road conditions.
Yes, Megan, for what should drivers be on the lookout this weekend?
Well, and then we are going to be seeing quite a bit of snowfall for this weekend, but that's mainly for eastern Montana. Now, they're expected to see a couple of inches, basically right around 5 inches of that snowfall, but it's going to be very heavy, wet snow. But for western Montana, it's more of just a dusting. Anywhere between 1/2 inch to about 1.5 inches of snow is expected for western Montana, and that does begin for tonight. So tonight, snow is returning tomorrow. Less than 1/2 inch is expected for snowfall when it comes to the western half of the state. But then next week, temperatures are only expected to be in the upper to low 20s and those low 30s. And so that means we are going to be seeing quite a bit of freezing fog causing those slick road conditions. But I'll have more details on that coming up in just a little bit. For now, Angie and Ben, send it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Megan. New information tonight. Missoula authorities say weather could have played a part in last night's car crash that left one man dead. Missoula police say 26-year-old Kyle Winchester was driving on Schramm Street, not far from the Montana Club on North Reserve around 7:15 last night. Winchester reportedly lost control of his vehicle and crashed into 2 parked cars, neither of which were occupied. Now here's a closer look at that area. Officials say Winchester was pronounced dead on the scene. The 24-year-old passenger was taken to the hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Police say neither person was wearing a seatbelt. This crash remains under investigation.
After at least 18 months of searching for Ashley Loring Heavy Runner, her sister is taking her case as well as the stories of many other missing Indigenous women to our nation's capital.
Kimberly Loring tells us the family spoke with Montana Senator Jon Tester this spring about how he wants to help find Ashley and share her story.
Now Ashley's family is part of the missing and murdered Indigenous women hearings in Washington, D.C. Kimberly says they want to shine a light on the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women across Montana.
We worked so hard to make sure that everybody knew that Ashley was missing. We searched a lot of grounds for Ashley. We went everywhere speaking her name, telling her story, and that everybody needs to know that Ashley is missing. By doing that we also helped other people that have gone missing and murdered.
Senator Tester's office says Ashley's hearing in D.C. will most likely take place sometime next month.
Governor Steve Bullock is in Mexico City today representing the nation's governors and attending the inauguration of Mexican President-elect López Obrador. Bullock says he also plans to meet with trade officials and business representatives during his visit, including the Brewers of Mexico and the Mexican Craft Brewers Association. The U.S. Grains Council reports that barley grown in Montana makes up nearly 70% of Mexican malt imports from the United States. Bullock says, quote, "It's critical to Montana's agricultural communities that we preserve this market access." He also adds, quote, "I look forward to further maintain and create new and long-standing trade relationships."
After celebrating last month's National Disability Employment Awareness Month, the OMG Mongolian Grill in Butte hosted the OMG I Have a Job Fair in the hopes of raising money for a new grant. Officials say today's job fair raised over $1,200 for the OMG I Have a Job grant. The grant offers funds to assist disabled workers with the costs associated with going to work, such as transportation and uniforms. A worker with disabilities can receive up to 3 grants of $100 each if they qualify for assistance. If approved, funds will be available to workers on January 1st.
The OMG I Have a Job grant, maybe the best named grant ever.
You know, I have to agree with you on that one.
Awesome name. Well, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas in the mining city. Residents, they celebrated the 28th annual Christmas stroll down Uptown Butte today.
Now, 10,000 people were expected tonight, and because of that, local businesses spent all week making sure the town was properly decorated just in time for the occasion.
Yeah, many stores in the Uptown area advertised great deals ahead of tonight's event, including Northwestern Energy, who hosted entertainment at its auditorium with some surprise guests. Officials say everyone was welcome to join in on this year's holiday celebration, including taking part in the city's annual tree lighting ceremony, which began earlier this evening.
But if you missed out on tonight's festivities, don't worry. Downtown Bozeman is preparing for its Christmas stroll tomorrow. Now in its 38th year, the Christmas stroll puts holiday spirit in full display up and down Main Street. Starting at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon, sleigh rides, gingerbread house contest, pictures with Santa, and the official lighting of the downtown decorations will all take place. More than 80 local businesses and food vendors will open their doors, offering hot chocolate, Christmas shopping, and something to eat. The Christmas stroll runs through 7:30, and the horse-drawn carriage rides, well, it leaves from Seroptimus Park on Rowson, Maine. The well-known Missoula musician releases today the first 2 songs of his newest album. It's something not done by David Boone in 7 years, as medical issues forced him into hiding. The recordings are David's ode to his wife and son, as together they move forward and wait for a bubble to burst.
Baby, don't talk that way about
In his first interview in 4 years, Missoula musician David Boone sings the sweet melody of country song. Written for his wife Stephanie, the love song transports him back to performing at the Montana State Fair in Great Falls and visiting the iconic Sip and Dip.
Sleeping in motels next to my wife, performing 5 nights a week, wanting a better life for her. I wrote this song for her.
Country Song, the first single David is releasing off of his new album, A Bubble to Burst.
The bubble to burst is trying to find your way back to that sacred space, you know, before everything kind of spiraled downward.
David's spiral downward began in 2011 after he toured the country promoting his album Dawns. His wife and 1-year-old son Myers were in tow, and a publicist and radio promoter were on the payroll, but the profits were not coming in.
So I kind of went into a difficult period and it was a sort of nervous breakdown period.
David lost sleep, his anxiety swelled. He was prescribed several medications, one that eventually led to an allergic reaction.
So this kind of prompted them to take me off all of these medications abruptly overnight, and I ended up in an ER. I was having seizures.
It was an emotional war zone that led to the loss of his memory and put him in isolation for 2 years.
I lost all my songs, which my songs for me in life had always been my way to cope.
After seeing a specialist, David has been on a slow path to recovery for the past 4 years. Stephanie and Myers have stayed by his side every step of the way.
I don't know if I ever would have recorded, except Steph kind of challenged me.
A challenge that led to a collaboration. Jeff Ament of Pearl Jam is playing bass on 3 of the 13 songs on the album, and the sounds were all mixed together in a Missoula studio by acclaimed London producer Danton Supple, who produced for Coldplay.
For him to take that step and to kind of believe in the music and believe in me, but also to force me to engage with another human being in a room together for like 4 or 5 weeks was pretty insane.
And for David, these songs describe his family's 7-year journey, one of trauma, of invaluable time lost together, and of healing.
My wife and my counselor would say, you're not in the bubble anymore. And I think they would contribute a lot of that to the music.
The power of his music, giving him the strength to allow this bubble he has been in to burst.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get the stars for you.
The healing power of music
really
certainly
is.
does something for you. Now, David recently signed a 6-song deal with Sony EMI to produce custom scores. Country Song, along with Work in Progress featuring Jeff Ament on bass, are now available for digital download. And pre-orders of the album Bubble to Burst, they are available now through January 1st.
I was just going to say, how can people kind of get this album of this amazing music?
Well, all of the information can be found by searching this story on our Facebook page, and you certainly will want to give it a listen. There's a lot of odes to Missoula, a lot of odes to Montana, one that in fact includes the iconic Uptown Diner.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, a Montana boy talking about Montana. Pretty hard to beat that, right?
Yep.
Well, we get a lot more coming up on the Fox Montana News at 9. Did the MSU Bobcats stand a chance against 6-time national champion North Dakota State? I don't know. Sean Rainey will have his breakdown in sports.
So all eyes will sure be watching, and later, some of us, well, it's just healthcare, but for others, it's a matter of life and death. A Great Falls woman shares a powerful story of her daughter's struggle for survival. It's all coming up later in the show.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Ashley Furniture,